It's that time of year again. The weather's finally getting cold, and somehow we're all getting ready for the holidays. Here on Us and Them, we're returning to one of our own annual traditions. There's a flurry of guests pulling into my mom's driveway here in Charleston, West Virginia, and we're about to head into the house for the 2023 Us and Them dinner party.
Yeah. I haven't been up to Fort Hill.
Give me a hug.
I walked up here in high school. Hi.
Perhaps you remember our previous dinner party episodes where we test an increasingly far-fetched concept in America. What happens when you bring people with vastly different beliefs together and actually have a conversation? From West Virginia Public Broadcasting and PRX, you're listening to Us and Them. I'm Trey Kay. As we sit down at the table, there's a feast of chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a lot more. But before we dig in, it's time for everyone to meet properly. So I asked if my guests will introduce themselves and tell us how they identify politically.
My name is David Pendrake. I started life out as a Republican. I switched to being a Democrat and was for years. And then I was getting ready to switch back, but I felt like both parties had lost their mind and lost their sort of compass.
My name is Joe Solomon. I lean a bit progressive, and I'm a city councilor here in Charleston, West Virginia.
I'm Karen Cross. I'm a political director for a nonprofit, Right to Life. I'm registered independent and lean conservative.
My name is Frank Kenny. I'm a medical scientist by training. I'm also a Charleston City Councilman, right of center.
I'm Terry DeLauder, and I'm retired from, did medical malpractice insurance for years and commercial insurance, and definitely lean right.
I'm Marcia Albert, grew up in Charleston, and I was involved in the first integrated high school class in the state of West Virginia. I saw basically what was wrong with the South, and particularly West Virginia integration. So I voted for Kennedy and have been registered Democrat ever since.
Jay Gould. I'm a partially retired. I consider myself a conservative Democrat, but there's no such thing anymore. Politically in this country, I would probably be considered an ultra-conservative.
My name's Elliot Hicks, and I'm a lawyer here in Charleston, and have been for now 42 years, which shocks me. I consider myself solidly progressive. I don't know that I have any choice. So, and I love to talk to people about things like this. I think these are the kinds of things that we all need to try to hear what other people have to say in a calm place. My specialty is mediation and arbitration, and so this particularly appeals to me when we can bring people together to talk about things like this.
With introductions out of the way, we dig in to the food and conversation.
We all have different life experiences. And whenever we talk to people who differ with us, we see where they come from. Hopefully they'll see where we come from. And we most definitely should be able to talk, you know, with respect.
I remember when you went to a gathering, a picnic, a bar, whatever, people voted for different people. They had different viewpoints, but they weren't fighting about it. It was like, oh, I believe this, well, I believe that. And you're like, oh, okay, pass the punch, you know?
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I don't know about any of you folks, but like I got on Facebook and whatnot, and you start to have these conversations over whether it's about the election or, you know, there's been a mass shooting or something, and you take that on Facebook and it just seems to go and ignite and go off like a rocket, like right away. There was a while, Terry's smiling.
You know how to provoke it.
Well, and you know what? Guilty. But you also know that I've stopped. Probably, you know, in the Obama years, I was in there, you know, kind of talking and, you know, and maybe Terry said, you know how to provoke it. I'd probably say stir in the pot a bit. And then during the Trump years, I just thought, this is too much. I can't. And now, if you guys follow me on Twitter or Facebook, I'm sorry, X, it's all affirmations, and I read a nice quote here that the Dalai Lama said or something like that, because I just have gotten to the point where it makes me too nervous. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Frank Annie is the first to weigh in.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't. What are you trying to accomplish when you post online? Are you, me and Joe's position, are you selling political capital for something that you could get passed, an ordinance or something that'll help a city worker because you want to be right in a conversation that doesn't matter? So great, you win a Twitter battle. Good for you. You get 700 likes. And I know it's a pressure valve for the average person because they feel like they're losing control. I don't blame people for ranting on Facebook. That's the only thing they have. But it's not constructive. I mean, people that made Facebook have made a great venue for us to vent and divide. It's sad and it's scary.
For Elliot Hicks, social media can offer an opportunity.
Yeah, the point for me, and this is presumptuous to say, but the point for me is to try to enlighten, because I think that some people don't know the history, and that's why the history is awfully important. That some people don't know the history, and if they knew the history, if they understood how things got the way they are, that they would think differently to a certain extent. I'm not going to, it's not going to be somebody's road to Damascus or anything when that happens, but I think that people think differently if they actually understand what happened in this country. That's why I have such an incendiary distaste for the folks who would try to keep people from understanding that, now that we're finally uncovering so many of those things that have been suppressed for so long.
Are you talking about like efforts to block, say, African American history, and what is called a critical race theory, et cetera?
Right, yeah, what people terribly mistakenly called critical race theory. We need to have a well-rounded educational curriculum. So we need to talk about just about everything. Of course, age appropriate. I mean, good grief, you're not telling small children things that they ought not to hear yet. But people have to know their history. People have to know civics. That's just an important thing to me. It means a lot to me. And so when I got on, I still had a lot of these futile talks on Facebook with people, and they were terrible because what terrible? Well, because you think you're gonna be able to have a civil conversation, and then either the person goes off on some tangent that leaves you shocked, or the side comments, the other folks who want to jump in, will turn the conversation in a more negative way and make it so that it doesn't feel good anymore.
Social media can change the way we feel about each other. But that's not all. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, or X, and TikTok are the world's biggest breeding ground for questioning, well, everything these days.
Public trust seems to have gone through the floor. I think that if you're on the right or the left, there are parts of our society, things that in a way we kind of all need to agree on if this democratic republic is going to work. So we don't trust our politicians. We don't trust during COVID, we didn't trust, various government agencies. We didn't trust the CDC. We didn't trust the FDA. We don't trust the FBI. We don't trust law enforcement. We don't trust news media. Jay? I'm curious. This is a question I've talked about a bit before. What about this issue of trust?
I trust you, Kay, due to experience. You've not misrepresented me. It's not been influenced one way or the other that I could tell. So that trust you earned.
Oh, it feels good to hear you say, Jay.
Problem I have with, and I'll say it, mainstream media, they've presented too many lies. The politician, they say one thing and do something else. You earn trust. You can't buy it, and you can't give it.
Joe, you were going to get in there?
One of the reasons when running for city council that, I'm a Democrat, that I ran hand in hand with Dr. Frank Annie, who's a registered Republican, is that we wanted on a local level to demonstrate that we could work together, and so that if folks would vote for us, they could see, we could have a cross-partisan, a bipartisan city council that was working together, and people would call us the bipartisan bros. And I'm not just quite showing off our our working relationship. But I think that as there's more discord nationally, I don't think always the solution is to fix it nationally. I think it's to fix it from below.
I guess for me, I have this, I love American politics and the civics. I think there's so many good stories about, you think about the impactful pieces of legislation that came out of Washington, and they decided on a handshake between Democrats and Republicans. And I have this idea when I met Joe, it's like, let's just do it. If it's gonna die soon, let it die with us. But for right now, let's go get stuff done. And that was the thing, and he marched up and down my ward and he was ran at large. People loved it.
Everybody knows it's not good to have a hole in the street. And those are the kinds of things that city council people work on. Is people say mayors get things done. They've got to get things done because people depend on them for that. But one thing about the trust that really is difficult and different now, it seems to me, is you have more people who are willing to say that up is down and down is up, that black and white is white and white is black. And I can't do anything with that. Then it leaves me very frustrated that I can't. No, there will never be trust built for somebody who would say that January 6th was no big thing. I can't do that. I don't know what to say to the person who says that. Lies are lies a lot of times.
Yeah, I think Elliot's point that it's important that we find the truth in things and sort of don't just allow some things to be, you're calling it black and I'm calling it white. And I also feel like I'm tired. I'm tired of the some of these national schisms where I just feel like we're not going to find that common ground. And I'll continue. I don't think we're going to find common ground about whether Trump should be in jail or not. But what gets me going every day is, can we find common ground? Can I find common ground, working with Dr. Annie on council on whether we should put more books in the library or more asphalt into our potholes or more naloxone into, our Parks and Rec first aid boxes. And then if we can build that camaraderie and that sense of civic partnership on our councils, then we can bring that to our counties, and we can bring that to our counties, then we can bring it to our state houses. We can bring that to our state houses, we can bring it to our halls of power in DC and even to the White House. And that's what just gives me energy. I see it one way, you see it another, and I'm tired of that debate. And so what fuels me is the work, in our backyard.
What Joe says makes a lot of sense to me. But I wonder, if we focus on the little stuff locally and shy away from confronting big national conversations, how much of a solution to America's divisions can that really be?
Yeah, I think you're right. If everyone just sort of got to work addressing climate change, in their community, or addressing, economic inequity in their community, and didn't address the inequities, the injustices on a national level, then we wouldn't ever see the light of day on a national level. And I do see most of the energy going to these national debates. And even when I'm not tired, even when I have some energy, I think, does my voice matter on that stage? And then I feel like I don't think it does. And I envy people that feel like their voices do matter, that their voice feels like it does matter, that it can move the Supreme Court, or that can move Manchin, or it can move even people in our own West Virginia State House. I'm like, God bless. But you've got a city councilor, and you've got at-large councilors, and you've got a mayor here in Charleston, or in whatever town you live in West Virginia, or whatever town you live in the country. And those folks are not hearing from enough of you.
We got to start locally. I wish we could just stop hating each other for 5 minutes and just agree on things.
And that's when the conversation takes a turn. We talk about the escalation of hate and how much we need to work on how we talk to each other. But there's some agreement that our conflict is fueled by the lack of public trust we just talked about. We see our government's dysfunction through varying lenses. We know our leaders are failing us in important ways, but we struggle to agree on how. We see different people as the villain. Until now, we've been talking about issues of trust with America's elected representatives. Then David jumps in, and after that, Elliot.
It doesn't bother me that there's a little bit of squabbling with Congress, with the Senate, with the presidency. But with the Supreme Court, they should be even keeled.
What we ended up, even back at Abe Fortas, people started, they began to ideologically test judges, and now it seems like the organized nature of it is a little bit different now. Everybody knows that when, for instance, when these justices said that they thought that Roe versus Wade was settled law, everybody knew that they didn't believe that. We knew that they were willing to change it, and they did. I mean, the proof of that pudding is in the eating. But they had said during their confirmations that, oh, it's settled law and that's taken care of. So, there is an ideological test, and it's unfortunate. And I wish we could do better, but some of these issues are so important that it's awfully hard to do that. I mean, there's some philosophies of judges that I can't tolerate, and that becomes existential for me in the history that I have in this country.
As an African-American man?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's just existential. I can't play with this. This may be something where other people say, well, the taxes will be this or they won't be that. Well, that's fine for taxes. Not for me. I've got to pay attention to these things and the philosophies these people bring. And I don't mind an ideological test to some extent on certain things. I can't mind that.
Karen, I haven't heard from you in a while, and he brought up Roe Wade, so I...
Get in there.
Yeah, and we never believed that it was, that Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton should have been handed down. It was 7 members of a court back in 1973, and there were 2 decisions that day, Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton. Roe broke the pregnancy into trimesters and gave different rules for each trimester, saying that the last 3 months could only be for health reasons. Doe v. Bolton defined health so broadly as to include any reason, age, familial, anything relevant to the well-being of the mother. So it's psychological, and so it essentially allowed, and a lot of people didn't realize that. For instance, if you asked somebody, even in recent polling after Dobbs was handed down, if you ask somebody, should the court have reversed Roe? And a lot of people don't like reversing court decisions, right? Or they don't know what it did.
For the first time, I can feel the room getting uneasy. Marcia turns to the group and says, "Can we get a medical opinion on Karen's argument?" And then she looks to Frank Annie, who has a doctorate in medical geography and is a clinical research manager at the Charleston Area Medical Center.
I guess for me, the first question I would ask, there's been 7 state ballot initiatives, and they've all, they've all failed. Whenever people were put to the ballot about this issue, as a 34-year-old Republican, I think this is the dog that caught the car. It's going to kill the Republican Party. From a purely science point of view, if you're an OB, goodbye from West Virginia. We don't have any OBs
We're losing
anymore.
not just OBs.
People in training programs won't risk their licenses operating in states where the law's vague. We talk about ectopic pregnancy and all these, we throw out these words all the time. There's a lot of stuff in medicine that's not included there. Let's say you have a fetus that is clinically dead inside of a woman. Are they supposed to carry it to term?
No, stillbirth, removing a stillborn child is not abortion.
What if you have a woman that has a chronic underlying heart condition that does not...
Medical emergency.
What if you have a woman that has... I can keep giving examples, but to me, it's when I have friends that are clinicians that are scared because there's not Now, I'm glad that there was certain legislation with West Virginia that made it not a criminal offense. It went to the medical board the way it should. It does lend itself of, okay, what can we do now versus not? There are examples of, okay, what if you have a slow bleed? Do you wait till the hemoglobin of the woman goes to a certain level, then you do emergency surgery? I just feel like being an OB or being a cardiologist or being a GI doc or being there's all these weird conditions that are not really applicable and you can't really digest them in the sense of a 3-hour conversation when the bill came to the floor, and there's all these instances that are just, they're weird, they're just uncommon.
But most abortions are not. 95% of abortions are for social reasons. No woman should have to, or girl, should have to feel she has no choice but to have an abortion. In this society, we need to come alongside of women and girls and find out what their needs are, provide help to them, real help, and come alongside of them, and so that they don't ever feel they have no choice but to have an abortion. And then the regret that goes along with it. Like, I've had 2 abortions, and the regret is intense.
Karen's comment is raw and emotional. And that's when Marcia Albert steps in with a story from her own life this year.
I have a granddaughter who is Haitian, and she was adopted by my son David when she was a baby from Haiti. And we raised her as a family, and we gave her every advantage. And she became pregnant last year, and she was 22, and we did everything we could for her. And she wanted to have her baby. The first thing I said to her, and I truly believe in abortion. I believe it is a medical procedure. So as a grandmother, I said to her, I will support whatever your decision is. I went to every prenatal visit. My son and his wife were there when the baby was born. There was nothing afterwards to help her. And she didn't reach out for help. The baby died at 5.5 months in January. Now, where was the system that you're talking about to recognize this young girl by herself? Coming through the system, she went to the clinics. Nobody recognized it. They didn't recognize it when she wasn't breastfeeding enough. It wasn't recognized. So you can talk in platitudes about all these wonderful things. I've helped a lot of people. I was a guardian ad litem for 9 years with adopted and foster kids in Sarasota. I'm a family therapist, a psychologist. Until these systems are set up, we can't just say, have a baby and everything's going to be fine. I don't believe this word social abortion. I think that's an insult.
That's what we're trying to do, actually. In the West Virginia legislature, we are actually trying to get better help for women now. And last year they passed a bill that puts it's only $1 million, but it's $1 million more than there was before into helping systems for girls and women that offer free support.
Counseling, but I'm talking about after.
And about things that affect them.
After, exactly.
Alongside. How are they going to eat? How are they going to provide for the,
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just very, very raw. And I'm still mourning.
Are you sure?
I will mourn forever over this baby. I love this baby. I adore this baby. And he just couldn't be taken care of. Here's my story. He looked around and saw he wasn't going to make it, so his soul went to a family where he's going to have a daddy and a mommy and everything right.
This is a very important topic to me. I can show you pictures of 3 wonderful, great grandchildren of when they went to school this year, standing out in the yard. All 3 of them are in advanced classes. Their mother was born to my 15-year-old daughter. I paid for 7 years of college, 2 degrees. I sent the granddaughter, the 3 great-grandchildren are grandchildren. And they call us, you and Mama are great grandparents. And as far as the national health care, I would much rather have national health care than sending $60 billion to Ukraine.
I just feel like we're raising a false flag argument around, saying that, we'll be against abortion altogether if we live in a utopia. And that's weird, because we're talking about a civil right for people that can give birth. Whether they have all the resources available for their child or not, it's in my mind, it's still a choice. And I think we should debate that. Is it a choice or not?
The legal status is like, do you see it as a murder? But the thing that everybody's forgetting is how to fix it, avoid it. Is you've got to educate these kids and parents, so you don't have what's ending up now is a bunch of single family or one parent families, which is creating another whole issue in itself. So, the question of it is you got to birth control. It has to be taught. And accountability of males. Males need to be held more accountable. I don't know how you do that, but it needs to be done.
Sometimes it's surprising how intimate America's biggest policy issues can be. The room is both tense and tender. And I'm a little relieved we've got lots of dessert to enjoy. That's coming up after a break. I'm Trey Kay, and you're listening to Us and Them. This program is supported in part by the West Virginia Humanities Council, the CRC Foundation, and the Daywood Foundation.
In difficult times, music gives us peace, brings us together, and helps heal us. It calms our nerves and brightens our days. That's why we're bringing you classic episodes of Mountain Stage on air and in our podcast. This is Larry Gross, host of Mountain Stage. Find something that's familiar or brand new and feel the power of live music on our website, mountainstage.org.
Tiramisu, anybody? It's real light.
If somebody would give me a piece of the yeah, I'd like that too.
Hey, Trey Kay here, and you're listening to Us and Them from PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting. After some pretty intimate moments in our discussion, it seems like everyone is ready for some dessert. But along with the sweets, I think it's time to bring up one of the elephants in America's living room. The civil and criminal charges against former President Donald Trump feel like the ultimate test for this dinner table. Those cases involve financial fraud, mishandling of sensitive documents, a hush money scheme to cover up extramarital affairs, as well as racketeering charges in Georgia attempting to overturn the 2020 election. Many Americans are still processing the reality that the former president, Donald Trump, and some who served him in the White House now face multiple charges with the potential for serious prison sentences. It's time to rip off that Band-Aid.
Well, we haven't talked about all these indictments. How? Well, Karen, you just gave a gasp there. I mean, what are you? How are you feeling about it? It's.
I don't know. Part of me worries about the politicization of our justice system. It seems like there's not equity in. Like if we're going to be indicting somebody for serious things, we need to indict everybody that has serious issues.
You're moving a little bit there, Frank Annie, so I'm just curious, how do you feel about
We've
that?
got sugar. It's kind of what I said before. I mean, the courts will decide. I think the most telling of that indictment is, when he's calling down there and saying, "You got to give me a couple more votes." I think going back to looking at duplicity of criminality within our national politics, I think the root cause is money. And I think everyone at this table can agree we shouldn't have money in politics at the level we do. There's too much greed in it. And I think that's where everyone starts.
It should be transparent where the money comes from. And when they have these PACs, political action committees, they take all this money, which if it were in the sunlight, would be considered dirty, right? And bribery, and both sides do it. Both sides do it.
I think that is certainly something that is really important. But I wanted to keep it about this. These indictments, they're unprecedented, and
they're appropriate.
They're appropriate, you think?
I think so.
I do too.
Really?
I do too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
everybody says this hasn't happened before, but we haven't had a president to do these things
well,
before.
first of all-
and that's just. And,
Let him say that.
Go ahead.
and we're only talking about the things we know happened. I mean, the things we get to hear, the things we get to see on video. When it comes to that kind of thing, what we're seeing, the kind of crimes that this former president is accused of, that's not both sides. That's not both sides.
Are you kidding me?
And then Elliot and Terry start talking.
I'm very serious about that. That's not both sides. I haven't heard a Democratic president ask for
Well, it really
ask for
was-
11,000 votes. I
Okay.
haven't heard any Democratic president ask for people to come and march on the Capitol to overturn an election. I just haven't heard that before.
He didn't say march on the, and I don't know where you got that, but he did not say that. He said, let's do a peaceful, on your way to, the exact words, peaceful march to the Capitol.
I thought I heard him say that we need to fight.
No.
We need to keep fighting. We'll
He'll
never
keep
stop
fi-
fighting.
Yes, but he was very specific when he told them that they were going to, when they were walking. The last thing he said to the crowd, let's do a peaceful walk to the Capitol. That's what he said. He was talking about we have to fight. Of course we have to fight, but not fist fight, okay? And it doesn't really matter because, Hillary Clinton, she denied the election results. So did Stacey Abraham.
None of the lawyers who were hired by him to work in the government told him that. None of the only lawyers who told him that are some of the people from outside, the Sidney Powells, the other folks who told him that. And so when you ignore all the credible evidence that you lost the election, and everybody is saying that. I mean, even the Fox News hosts, when they were in Candid Moments, they said they knew this, but yet, we're still clinging to the idea that that they were righteous in their belief that the election had been stolen. 60 different court cases, lost all of them.
They didn't let them.
All of them many of them in conservative states.
Right.
I don't know how
They
you.
didn't let them show a lot of evidence in those.
I don't know how you see the sun any brighter.
Something that they're saying right now is something you just pointed out, which is a huge problem, is now it appears that they're going after anyone around Trump. Any attorneys that have represented him, they're getting bar complaints. All the attorneys all over the nation are backing off. Okay, I have a problem with that. Okay, that there's from the right, from the left, an absolute. They're definitely don't want him to run for president, and they're going to do anything they can. These indictments were all timed very specifically.
But the positions they're urging have no basis in the law. I mean, that's the reason this is happening. These people are not in the whole weight of things. These people are not on the side of any truth. They made this up, and they've maneuvered this just to make a case that he could say that he believed it. But the thing is, nobody close to him really says he believed it.
That's just one piece of it. I'm just talking about the whole gamut, all of the indictments together. If you look at it, it's all very political. The one in New York, okay, about the money. That's already been, that was done with Edwards. There's precedent on that. That's ridiculous. That's not going to go anywhere. The one in D.C., the January 6th, you're going to have a really hard time proving that he, was standing up on a soapbox screaming, go get him, go, overturn the election. Although he did ask Pence to do it. And in reality, it was done years and years, Jefferson, I think. And they did do that. They stopped it. They did an investigation because there were improprieties. And then they came back and then they redid it. So it's been done before.
Terry's talking about the presidential election of 1800, when, not so unlike today, bitter partisan divides dominated America's leadership. At our table, not everyone believes that President Trump's actions are anything more than just politics as usual.
Elliot, I need you to go down here in town. You're a lawyer. I need to buy a 5,000 square foot home for less than $100,000. Now, I've given him instructions that are ridiculous. What's the difference in that than saying, I need you to find me 1,100 votes, 11,000 votes?
I think the difference is that the power of the presidency. When a president of any ilk says something to somebody that's at a smaller...
He's working out of his authority as president, and he can't be convicted working in an official capacity as president.
Oh, but that's a partisan thing he's asking for. That's
Don't
not
matter
no,
whether
no, no, no,
doesn't matter
no,
whether
it does. That's not part of the official duties of the president to make sure he gets reelected.
Part of his official duties is to make sure
It's not a partisan
there's
thing.
a fair election.
Right.
Now,
but
if he feels that it wasn't fair and he operates
Well,
under that scenario-
you're looking at it.
You're still, you don't have confidence in the 2020 election.
Oh no, not at all, not at all.
Terry, you don't as well.
Way too many things. I mean,
I listened to too much testimony and watched too many videos. He is the executive officer of this country. And was he legitimately elected in 16?
I thought he was.
Well, a lot of people says he wasn't. Hillary says he wasn't. To this day.
She says
he
that?
wasn't. Yeah, she
I
says
haven't heard that.
Yeah.
That's how we ended up at the intersection of politics and media. I think many of us have found ourselves in conversations with people who get their information and disinformation from wildly different places. Frank ties that reality to the dozens of people who are now implicated in criminal charges stemming from President Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
I think if you look into it, you can see well, are you tricked into this? Were you tricked into something? Were you tricked into committing a felony when the person knew that you were going to commit a felony by doing for PR purposes to raise money for your legal defense? And so that's the biggest thing that I, with the whole indictments that I've heard, there's a lot of podcasters and a lot of conservatives that I've listened to that have distanced themselves from Trump because Rudy Giuliani went and gave testimony that said that they did not believe that this was fixed. That it was, because when Rudy went there, and he's a lawyer, knows that if he lies, he's going to go to prison. You're like, we had strong reservations with some of the theories, and
here's the thing: it doesn't matter what he thinks, but if Trump truly believes that he was wrong, okay, and Jay touched on that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's he did that out of his president's suit, and he has to. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. You're just hitting my buttons.
Did we have a peaceful transfer of power between Hillary and Trump? Did I miss that?
I mean,
Was that
Obama?
No, I mean Obama.
Well, I mean, Obama at the time,
And when Hillary didn't win and admits she didn't win, as far as I'm concerned, she did.
Well, I mean, during that time, they all were doing the Russian collusion. I mean, Obama knew about it. Clinton precipitated it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to call that peaceful, but they were certainly behind the background.
I guess I just never heard all these other things up until this election. Maybe I was living in oblivion.
They were out to remove Trump before he ever went into office.
But he did have an inauguration, and Hillary Clinton was there, and Bill Clinton was there, and President Obama was there, and President Bush was there, and that was something that didn't happen with the transition from President Trump to President Biden. As we talk, I notice Joe fidgeting in his seat, so I call him out. And what he says surprises me.
I think these conversations are important to have. I also happen to believe that we don't live in a country with kings and with guillotines. We live in a country where we hold our leaders accountable, and we have courts, and we're going through that process now. We're debating corruption. Most of us live in Charleston, West Virginia, and just hear me out. In just the last week, we heard that in just the last 3 years, the Charleston Police Department has spent over $9 million on overtime, and 17 of those officers reported more than 1,000 hours of overtime in 2022. That means over 20 hours a week. If there's corruption, it might be in those numbers. But if we don't have that debate locally, we don't deal with the corruption locally. And I just feel like 90% at least of the oxygen in the room goes to these national conversations. And when we're having these conversations in City Hall, sometimes those bleachers are empty.
There are times when local political issues struggle to engage people like presidential campaigns do. Today, many Americans are turning their interest towards the 2024 election. So far, the two frontrunners appear to be President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. A rematch of the last election. I wonder what my guests are thinking in the early days of this race. We've talked a bit about trust, and it seems like when I just said that word right now, I saw people on the left and the right shake their heads, nod their heads. How are you guys feeling about the 2024 election? Jay, you didn't feel confident about the last election.
I text my daughter this past week. We were talking about some of the indictments in Georgia and some of the news and so forth. And what I told her was, if Trump is found guilty and sent to prison, the conservatives in this country is going to go crazy. If by chance he is reelected, the liberals and progressives are going crazy. And what I told her is, we're in for some crazy times in this country.
The only thing that would stop it is if he bowed out himself, and he's not going to.
You nodded your head, Elliot, when he said that either side is going to go crazy. Is that
heard it before.
You've heard it, but it sounds like you may not agree with it.
Well, I mean, I know, and people are already crazy. So I don't know that anybody's going to go any crazier. I mean, I think that people will act out, and I think that they have now, we've opened a Pandora's box where people feel okay to do that, and I'm very worried myself. Very worried about all the things that have been opened up.
We'll be okay here in West Virginia. We got common sense, really.
It's when you say that either side is going to go crazy. I mean, it's pretty much a binary thing you've described. If President Trump is put in jail, you're saying that there's going to be a strong negative reaction from his supporters. And if he loses, if he wins the election and he pardons himself, if he were to do that, you're going to say that people on the left are going to go crazy.
I don't think he has to pardon himself. I think if he's just elected.
We don't ever see anything. I still haven't seen a definitive. What happens if he is found guilty? What happens if he's not in jail? There's no sentence, and he does win. Then what happens if he's in there?
My concern is, you said that it's not going to be a problem in West Virginia. To me, I feel like what I'm hearing you say is you're kind of shrugging. That there is that type of discord that is in our nation, and that it could be maybe January 6th on steroids. No big deal?
What if he isn't elected? What if he runs, because he could run from jail evidently, and he doesn't win, and he doesn't accept it again? Because he's saying that, basically.
Well, and I think he would, but the only thing I can say
so
is,
we go through
God
this,
help us
is
on
this,
these election days.
If the COVID and the drop boxes and all that was back again, which I don't believe, there's no way they will be. If all that was back, yeah, it'd be a problem. But there's been a tremendous attempt to do away with the things that could be corrupted.
I think that we also need to make sure people don't use it as an excuse not to vote, that my vote doesn't matter. I think that everyone needs to still believe and know that every individual vote still matters. And I think, because some people might just say, well, it doesn't matter, and it really does.
I think the Democrats are getting that point across. You guys do very well with that, getting people to vote.
We had a good friend who lost their city council race by one vote. So
Yeah, one vote.
And the point you've tried to make, Joe, throughout this is that there's something that we can control, and that's our local elections. I mean, we can elect a mayor that will do things. We'll pave streets. We'll do the things that we will get the garbage picked up and those kinds of things. We can do something about that, and that's why, if for no other reason, that's why each vote counts, because we can change our own communities and things can spread from there, and that's very important.
At this point, we're all tired and probably a little worked up. But I want to finish our night together with a question I often ask at a holiday table to my loved ones. I want to know what brings my guests joy, or hope? And then what creates their worries?
I like what I have here. I like what I've had here. I really appreciate that.
I love living here, and I hate when we get maligned in any way.
What I look forward to and what I try to do is family. That's where my influence is.
I maintain hope that we will work stuff out.
And as long as we keep fighting for what we believe in, to be good people, to help each other, there's still hope. What scares me is, I think was said at the other end of the table, is certain people give up on talking.
You see threats, you hear very toxic language, very violent sort of oriented stuff. And that causes me concern.
I'm concerned about the opioid epidemic in this country. I'm really scared about it. It's serious, right? And just there's so much to do and so much that needs to be done that we need to get together.
What worries me is the younger generation. It scares me that we're not offering, I feel, from what they say, that we're not offering them what they need to stay here.
I'm sad about what we've become. I'm sad about what West Virginia has become, and I'm sad about the Pandora's box that has been opened, where gains, and again, it means something to me. Some of the things with regard to race and acceptance of people that live and let live that I've always cherished. I'd like to see that spread everywhere, not just black, white, whatever. I want to see that everywhere. I want to see us accept people and stop rejecting people. That's what I worry about.
That's a Republican ideal, live and let live kind of thing.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay.
That was a joke.
You've been listening to Us and Them. Our team for the show was me, Trey Kay, Christina Stella, and Kate Smith. Special thanks to Bobby Lee Messer and Kyle Vass for recording the audio of our dinner party. And a special shout out to the dinner party guests who couldn't make it: Ann Cavalier, Felicia Bush, Sharon Banks, Steve Roberts, and Bo Copley. Michael Lipton, Tristam Lozow, and Ahmed Solomon wrote and performed the Us and Them show music. Mark Lerner designed our logo. The marvelous people at PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting make Us and Them possible. So do grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the West Virginia Humanities Council, the CRC Foundation, and the Daywood Foundation. Us and Them was originally developed with assistance from the mentorship program at AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio. We'd love to get your thoughts about this episode. Share them with us on our Facebook page or on Twitter at Us Them Podcast. Hey, let's keep the civil conversation going. And we'll see you next time on Us and Them.
Support for this podcast comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.